Welcome to the Power of Music podcast, brought to you by JM International. Get ready to explore conversations with those making a difference through music.
Hello, and welcome to the Power of Music podcast, brought to you by JMI, Jeunesses Musicales International, the network of NGOs that empowers young people through music across all boundaries. In this episode, we're joined by Gaurav Narula, a seasoned music industry professional with over 15 years of experience spanning press, marketing, business development, partnership, sync, and artist and event management. Originally from India and now based in Berlin, Gaurav has worked with some of the biggest names in the industry, including BMG Music Publishing, Universal Music, and Rolling Stones magazine. Since 2018, he's been an integral part of WOMEX and Piranha Arts, helping to shape one of the most influential music expos in the world. We dive into the challenges and opportunities of organizing an event on the scale of WOMEX, bringing together over 2,600 music professionals from across 90 countries each year. Gaurav shares insights into the delicate balance of curating an inclusive and diverse program while also pushing boundaries and keeping the event fresh and forward-looking. We also discuss what it takes to preserve the magic of WOMEX, ensuring it remains a space where global music communities can connect, collaborate, and inspire. He also lets us in on how he ended up making edits of 90s Bollywood disco tracks. As always, if you enjoy our content, don't forget to subscribe, like, and rate the podcast. We hope you enjoy the episode. Thank you so much for joining us today for the podcast. First, could you share a little bit about your journey into music and how you ended up with WOMEX?
I'm originally from India, and I've been in music all my life. I was making music as a kid and finished school, college, got into music. I started working with BMG Music Publishing. That was my first job. Started as an intern, and that was all in India. And music publishing was a very boring, funny sector to start your work with. But it was really interesting because it opened so many doors. And this was all in India. And then I worked with Universal Music in India, and then I ended up with Rolling Stone magazine in India. And through Rolling Stone magazine, I moved to Berlin, Germany. And from that Rolling Stone magazine, at some point, a music startup happened for a little bit. And then after that music startup, I joined WOMEX. And this is my 8th year at WOMEX now. And it's been a very interesting journey. So I have worked with, I would say, music like print magazine, a music label, music publishing, music events now. And at some point, there was a very little, like for I think 3 years, I was working with Bollywood celebrity management, talent management. So that also happened. Yeah. So, it's been a very, very lovely journey. And I've been in music, I would say, all my life, working life. Yeah.
Do you know some of your earliest musical memories? Like what shaped you back in India?
Growing up, I was a 90s kid. I was in school listening to Guns N' Roses, Aerosmith, Rage Against the Machine, Nirvana. The whole grunge period was heavy and beautiful. And, when I had a band, and then at some point in college, which was early 2000s, we were covering Alanis Morissette. We had a female singer. So we were covering a lot of Alanis Morissette, whole Fiona Apple. Like, it was really interesting. Yeah, those were my really, I think the formative years, and listening to a lot of, and then in Pink Floyd, of course, all this while, has always been consistent, and Led Zeppelin. So yeah, all these, for me, the rock and roll legends and the grunge was really definitely what shaped me. So I would say that has been my roots. And then, of course, I think at some point with time and age, blues and jazz came in, and from Dizzy Gillespie to there was a lot of jazz influence for a little bit. And yeah, I didn't get swamped by jazz, I have to say, but I'm glad that I went through it. But my roots were still very rock and roll, and still are. Still love Rage Against the Machine and the usuals, Yeah.
And I was actually going to ask this somewhat later in the podcast, but just before the episode, we had a little talk, and you talked about your DJ career as well, and that you now make Bollywood disco edits. How did that come about then?
It's funny. The Bollywood disco edit just happened. I've been producing a lot of music, or I've been focusing a lot on music production in the past 4 or 5 years. And a lot of times I would just, I mean, of course I make techno and house, and being a migrant living in Berlin and making this kind of music, like it's saturated market, and there's so much going on, and everyone, wherever you go, they always go like, but it's the same, it's the same, it's the same. I don't know, at some point I was a bit frustrated and I was just like, whatever, like, why does everyone expect something different? But which is also the good thing, because if there's something I've actually learned from WOMEX, and I can say, or, even the years before, but WOMEX even more, that you need to stand out with your art and your music. You have to. It just, otherwise it won't work. It won't make a difference. Your music won't make a difference otherwise. It all sound the same. And somehow, anyway, so at some point I was just like really digging deep, and there were some really amazing disco tracks I've always loved from Bollywood, from the 80s. Like there's a composer, producer called Bappi Lahiri, and he was huge. He sadly passed away a couple of years ago, but he had been a huge influence. Like all our growing up life, honestly, in the 90s, we all made fun of Bappi Lahiri because he was a very drenched in gold chains and very typical man you would think of, very flashy, very, out there. But it's only now when I look back, I think that man left a legacy behind. I don't think anyone in the world has ever done this. Like he has produced so much good music, and what he did. And when I listen to all these disco tracks of what he produced in the 80s, I'm amused and I'm amazed how amazing it is. So in a way, I think, it's kind of some of me, a part of me just saying like, let's try and make it a little more funky, actually more Berlin style. I would be honest, like there are a few clubs in Berlin which I really love, like Sisyphus or, Panorama Bar, very housey. And I actually just got inspired someday and I was like, let's pick up these old tracks and see if we can give them a new style. And that's what I do. And I'm just actually, in a way, producing odes or dedications to Bappi Lahiri, and just basically using his music and doing it in a different style. That's all I'm doing, not more. But yeah, that's how it started. Like, just wanted to try some new things, and it actually worked. And then I made a little set out of it, and people really enjoyed it, and it's doing decently well. So yeah, more of it.
I'm very curious to listen to it after we're done.
Yeah. So there are like some of them are like actually some old Bollywood tracks from 90s, and I would just, make acapellas out of them and use them in very different, interesting styles of funk and house and disco. Yeah. Take Bollywood out of that context and give some funk to it.
Yeah, there's a beauty in reimagining songs that are sort of embedded in a different time and then giving them new life, and then also let people discover music that they otherwise might have missed.
Also, you have to sometimes, I feel, careful, because when you pick up old classic songs, it's dangerous to remix or re-edit them, For me, I think it's just more fun project. Honestly, I just have fun with, bashing them around and just using them and putting my own element. Honestly, for me, it's nothing more. And I know some of these tracks are iconic classic tracks, disco tracks, and, like some people would hate it, but I'm not trying to get them, selling them, I'm just trying to make them for fun and just basically test myself up, like let's add some more funk to it and see where it goes. Yeah, that's how it happens.
For the people that are listening, I know there's quite a few young musicians listening that also are, maybe also expanding sort of their horizon of what is possible in the music industry and looking also outside of just making music. And you had a quite extensive career in media and in management, I just heard, for Bollywood artists, and then now with WOMEX. You mentioned some of the starts was like maybe boring, and of course that's also personal taste. Yeah. But can you tell a little bit about, maybe, is there a red thread through all of the work that you've done, and why is it that you ended with WOMEX and said like, hey, this is where I'm going to stay for how many years already?
This is the 8th year. It's been almost 8 years. I think the longest job I've ever had. Yeah, it's WOMEX. The common thread has been love for music. Also it's a lot of human growth. I mean, you get into music, I think like everyone, you get into music because it's cool. I got into music because it's funky, it's cool, it's glamorous. But then very soon you realize that the glamour is only in the front. At the back, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of not glamour. It's very different. It's a lot of heartbreaks and a lot of sadness and a lot of anxieties. Not anxiety, but like it's a lot of pressure. It's not as glamorous as it looks. When you see artists on stage, they look very, very cool, but at the backstage, they're carrying the heaviest bloody instruments and walking around looking for, cabs and money. And so, yeah, no, I think initially it was very different. Like, I mean, of course, the common thread has been the love for music, and which is the most important thing, honestly, like the passion and the love and the willingness to go through it, And but yeah, initially, of course, I picked it up because it was cool. I was playing guitar, so I was always like, music is funky and cool. But in a few years, like, you realize working that it's not just glamour; it's a lot of hard work. And I think I had realizations as well, like when I was, working with BMG or Universal. Like, some days were really difficult, and I either would hit the job or they would hit me. And it's very easy, and also it's very competitive market. So. And I'd seen some realities and I'd seen struggles of musicians. Yeah, so I think the love of music is the most important thing to pave through all these hardships. Also, to realize that you have to stay very true to the integrity of wanting to be in the music business and to, wanting to make a difference, because at some point you will realize like there can be a huge imposter syndrome very easily coming into music business actually at some point. So, and it happens, and it's also natural. It's okay to have that. But at some point you realize that, you can, I mean, if you keep working hard and you're honest, you would make difference to yourself and to for other artists and to other music people, basically. And I think with WOMEX, that has definitely been the case. I mean, it's a very honest organization, and the people who come to WOMEX, you see it like it's a very genuine market and a very genuine space. So you see that, what you do is actually making a difference to other people's lives. And that's how I think I got stuck here for this long.
So as long as you keep seeing that impact, you won't ever be able to leave that.
That's the most encouraging thing, honestly. Like when you see that little work you do actually has an effect on people's lives and their, like, I mean, honestly, music business is not an easy business to be in, or to survive in, like it's very easy to come and leave in a way, but to really be in it, it takes a lot of grit. And when you realize, like, I mean, especially with WOMEX, you have artists coming from around the world. And, sometimes I say like, WOMEX is like the underground conference of music conferences, like it's very like, it's run by people who love the scene.
For the people that are hearing about this mystical WOMEX that captured your attention to stay there for 8 years, but maybe have not yet heard of this conference at all. For me, it was actually my first time being there. And I also would like to take this opportunity to thank WOMEX and thank you personally for letting us record the podcast episodes there, because we had some jams there. But for people that haven't heard of this WOMEX and this lovely environment, what is WOMEX?
So WOMEX stands for Worldwide Music Expo. It's been around for 30 years. It started in 1994 in Berlin. Basically, the first year, there were roughly 300, 400 people. And basically just music lovers, music professionals, very few, very centric to Berlin. And so there's a conference. There is an expo or an exhibition where people have booths and stalls and they showcase their talent or whatever product they might have. There is films section and, of course, live showcases where artists from around the world come to perform for the professional audience. And when we say professional audience, it could be bookers, agents, managers, radio professionals, journalists. So yeah, basically a professional audience, and it's for them to basically find out what's going on in music around the world. And so, yeah, so basically WOMEX is basically all these things put together. And it happens, it's a traveling event. So it happens in a different country every year within Europe. So last year when you were there in 24, we were in Manchester. This year in October, we will travel to Tampere, Finland. Next year is a mystery still. And so, yeah, it's a traveling event. And that's also in a way really interesting because every year you get to travel to a different country. You get to represent a different region. And honestly, every region has so much amazing, beautiful music to dig into. And so, yeah, that's where I think this is also something which really makes WOMEX very special. Yeah.
And what do you think sets WOMEX apart from all the other conferences the most, besides maybe the traveling?
I think what's really, for me, I think this was also a discovery. I mean, I knew about WOMEX before I joined. I mean, I just heard of it. I'd never attended one before. when I came to WOMEX first, I realized how humble and how welcoming the people are. And I don't know why this is. Well, I mean, like, I somehow have an idea. Of course, I wouldn't say I don't know why. And I think it's also because most of the music that's catered by at WOMEX is, one can say traditional roots world music in a way, like, for the lack of a better term. And all this music, or indigenous music, so all this music is very grounded, down to earth. I mean, it's not glamorous. It's not something. It is glamorous of a different way, but it's not. I think, and that's what makes it very humble. Like it just, and people are very real. Like I feel like it's not run by big monies. I mean, none of these artists are making huge chunks. No one, any of these festivals where you find these artists, they're not like major big selling festivals or big selling venues. It's a very real business, so you realize that you are in this business because you really love music. And it's also something, it's something where there is a struggle to sell tickets. There's like every promoter knows what they're doing and they're dealing with. It's just more humbling, and you see that everyone is working as hard as you. And when you see someone in Pakistan is struggling with his own kind of, a venue or a booker or a promoter in Pakistan is actually having the same hardships as someone from Brazil, or, and so that way, I think WOMEX really has a lot of genuine people because it's somehow, it's just more honest. I don't know why and how, but it just, you see it, you feel it when you get there. Like you see it in people, like it's very, they really work together. And when they say they will work together, they really mean it. Like, they will follow up with you a week later. Like, even though it was a quick 1 minute meeting, but they really meant it when they say that, let's talk a week later. So yeah, I don't know what it would be, but there's something about this music style, I would say that's maybe what they realize, that, it's not about the biggest stages and the biggest monies, but it's more about making sure the music gets heard.
And I can attest to that, at least that vibe that I've experienced for sure. Just walking in there, it's very welcoming. And it also, there's this impression of all these people genuinely being excited, like, oh, I know I'm going to see all these people again that I love so much.
Yeah.
I mean, it's maybe a difficult question, but is there anything you do besides the programming to ensure to keep that magic as an organization?
So the thing is, we don't choose a lineup ourselves, right? I mean, I think that's something which has been the most transparent and amazing thing about WOMEX. So we bring a jury on board every year, which changes every year. So every year we bring in 7 amazing people from around the world. 5 of them sit down and they listen to every music submission that is made. So basically, let's say we start a call for proposals or call for artists in the beginning of the year. So where someone can send their songs, and basically like bands and artists can apply for their music. And so and also we open the call for films, we open the call for conferences as well. We also have Club Summit, which is catering to more underground DJs and electronic music side of the traditional world music. So yeah, so we open call for the artists or proposals. And then once we get that, we have a jury in the meantime who sits together. So there are 5 jury members who are dedicated for the showcase artists. And there are 2 jury members who are focused on the conference panels. From all the entries we get, so the jury decides the lineup for the year and the lineup for the conference panels. And so yeah, and that's how the lineup takes shape. So it's actually a really important part. When the call is open, we try and reach out everywhere and around the world. We encourage people to send in their entries because the lineup will only be as good as the entries we will get. It will be only as good as the music that will get submitted to WOMEX. So, I mean, a lot of times people would be like, why is there no Sri Lankan artist, or why is there no Indian artist, or why isn't there, I'm just giving an example, it's not true, but you know what I mean, like this, and sometimes like, it literally depends on the kind of music submissions that have come. So if there's a submission, then there's a jury who will listen to every artist that has sent their application. And then they will sit down in a room and they will discuss who and how. And that's how the lineup gets formed. Same with the conference panel as well. So there's a jury who will who will go through every proposal for the conference panel, and then they will decide what topics are more fitting for them. So it changes, it changes every year. And I think that's what keeps it really exciting as well. And also, jury decides who's going to be on the stage for WOMEX. Yeah.
That's lovely. I didn't know that. Then,
yeah,
of course, the question that comes to mind, which is a little bit maybe mean, is like, how do you pick the jury then?
Interesting. The whole thing behind this is because we want to keep the thing very transparent. We all have friends in music or artists, we all have artist friends or musicians who we meet when we are on the road, when we are going around traveling. And the thing is, if we would, we want to keep this open and very fair for everyone who applies, and if sometimes artists, then of course, that's why we have a jury. So it's a very fair process. How we pick up the jury is there's certain criteria we want to make sure, like the jury has been to WOMEX. So basically, jury is the delegates. So if you have attended WOMEX, now you have attended once, that means you are capable of a jury member. So it's basically like we know that the jury has been to WOMEX, understands what WOMEX is, the idea behind it, has seen showcases, has a professional experience where we know that they can bring value to picking the artists. Honestly, curation is a very difficult. People don't realize it, but curating a festival or an event or a venue, it's actually it's a game, and you have to be good at it. You can't lose. The more venues and the festivals that come up, the better you have to be at this. So, every jury member has a really big responsibility of bringing in basically who you would put on stage. And, for this scene, WOMEX thankfully over the years has made a brand name for itself that, for artists, when they play at WOMEX, they have a certain exposure which comes with it. Yeah. Basically, we make sure the jury member comes and they understand WOMEX, they understand the audience who's attending WOMEX, because at the end, that's what the music put on stage is for. So they understand the mechanics behind who their audience is, who their festival audience is also. And it gets a bit tricky, but we pick up delegates. Sorry, the jury is basically the delegates. Over the years, we see and we realize who could be a good jury. And they usually are every year we make sure they come from different parts of the world and different backgrounds. Sometimes, this year we have bookers, like festival booker, we have venue booker, we have a journalist, radio journalist from Colombia. Yeah, just different backgrounds. And that's where it gets interesting because they all bring in their own different ideas.
Fantastic. I was going to ask you indeed, because this is I think a theme that a lot of organizers can recognize, is that how do you ensure diversity and inclusivity? Because I have to say that, and I'm mostly talking about the conference panels, because I did see musicians and it was lovely, but I didn't check the whole schedule. But I specifically looked at the conference schedule because I was looking for guests for the podcast. Very diverse and seems very inclusive also in terms of topics. So I was going to ask you, how did you ensure that? But this is beautiful.
Yeah, no, so while the jury is there to set up the program or curate the program, we have no say to what they will decide, what they pick. But we do give them a little help in terms of making sure it's diverse. We are there just to remind them to keep their program varied and basically make sure that every region or every possible region can be part of the program or should be part of the program. And that's where the gamble comes in. But honestly, so far, every year I think jury does a fantastic job of putting this together. Up and down, depends. Of course, because it's such an objective thing. Like for some, it's okay lineup. For some, it's great lineup. But more or less, the jury works really hard to put in a different lineup from around the world of conference speakers, of mentors, of everyone. Yeah.
And maybe looking back at the last edition, because I was also impressed by how large scale it was and how many people were there. Do you have some numbers for the listeners?
On an average, we are anywhere between 2,600 to 3,000. The challenge is WOMEX is a traveling event. And when we travel to different parts of Europe, like last year, UK, it was amazing, but also it's expensive. And so for some, it was challenging to come to UK. So the numbers vary, and we try not to compete with ourselves by giving big numbers. We want to keep it very real. And it varies from, I would say, 2,600 to 3,000 professionals. What I think is more interesting in terms of numbers is how many people from different countries come to WOMEX. And last year, we had people coming from 118 countries, representing 118 countries at WOMEX. And I think that was a very interesting, very humbling number to realize that people like representing 118 countries. And that was very beautiful. Yeah. So yeah, basically the number basically varies year to year, but roughly I would say 2,600 to 3,000 music professionals who come every year. And I mean, of course, this includes the artists, includes all the music professionals from delegates to labels, publishers, agents, bookers, managers. Yeah, all of them. Journalists.
Looking back also, maybe personally, first and foremost, what is the biggest success you can celebrate looking back at the last edition? And also what is the lesson that you've learned maybe for the future?
Oh, the biggest success of last year was, I think, definitely this 118 countries representation. I think, honestly, the last time, I don't remember when it was, but it was a while ago. And this was very nice to hear. It was a really, really good addition. The last time we were in UK was 2013, I think. And so it was nice to be back on that island. And I mean, it's such a big market, UK, and it's such a mature music market. And it was really interesting to see and there was so much good music also coming from the whole UK. And yeah, I think the most successful thing was that we had people from 118 countries representing. And the lesson learned was Brexit is not easy. Honestly, we had amazing local partners who helped us in making sure this was a very, very smoothly run event. But we know at the back, Brexit made many things very difficult for not just for us, for artists, for so many music professionals, and for little things like about where you produce in UK, where do you produce, like in England, or do you produce in Europe, and how do you ship? Tax issues, that was a lesson learned. Like, it was not easy, but thankfully we had local partners in that region who really helped us with everything. But yeah, that was a challenge.
Looking back at these 8 years, what is a memory that stands out? What is salient right now when I ask this?
The thing is, I keep making new memories every year. I mean, but the most stable memory I think I have is as soon as WOMEX gets over, I really feel very humbled. And that's a beautiful memory I think I have from every year. I feel humbled by the amazing talent I see on stage and I meet backstage. I mean, of course, because of WOMEX, really, like the amount of music I hear and I see every year, like I wish this music was more popular. And I wish this music had bigger stages at festivals and venues. Unfortunately, maybe some do, but many don't. Amazing talent every year, honestly. And especially when you hear music from parts of the world you didn't think, like would be having... there are such amazing musicians everywhere, but when you see them and then you see what they do on stage and the magic they create, and this whole thing is so humbling. And I think for me, this is a memory I have every year when I just go and I go like, I just come back and WOMEX gets over and I'm like, I'm so lucky to have been part of this, to see these artists just do their thing. And especially also the audience and the delegates who actually come read about these artists and make sure they stand there and see their performances. And yeah, I think that's my one thing I always look forward to, just being humbled by the music, really. And that's the only word I can use, because when you see so much good music and talent, you can only feel that there's so much more to do.
I think there's a sense of wonder and awe that is always inherently humbling. Yeah. And I also experienced that watching the showcases.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, there can be music which you don't like. There can be music you can be like, oh, not my taste. Totally understandable. But when you think of it objectively, most of it is such good musicians, and what they bring is so special. And every year, like the lineup, there are of course many times artists who not my sound, but that said, still amazing music, and you can see the years of hard work and art in their music. Yeah, so I think that's something I really love about WOMEX.
In the spirit of honesty and humility, and also you said that a lot of artists that come there and organizers and programmers and bookers connect over how difficult it is to survive in the music industry. For all the organizers listening, what would you say has been the biggest challenge over the last 8 years, maybe disregarding COVID?
It could sound a bit personal, but I feel, or I wish, I mean, some programmers and some bookers really, I mean, this is the form of music where, again, for the lack of the better term, I would say world music. And when I say world music, it could also entail a lot of things, and then won't get into the argument of why world music, that term. I'm just going to use it for, there's no other, like we can say global music, but doesn't change much either.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so I feel like, when you have these artists coming from around the world, they never get booked by bigger festivals or bigger venues. But there are some bookers and programmers who really do believe in them. Like, every year we have Roskilde Festival who comes, and they used to have a full stage dedicated to this kind of music, but not anymore. But they still make sure that they book. I wish and I hope more bookers and festival programmers or venue programmers can hold on to their gun and book such artists, because they really do deserve, I mean, if you won't take chances with your booking and your programming, I don't think you will ever move away. Or it's something not everyone can do, but I hope more bookers can do. Like, you have to take chances. You have to take chances with programming and booking. And I see less and less of this happening. Most of the bookers usually go for what they know and what they know will sell, but very few really go for what they really believe can be very interesting for the audience. So Colors of Ostrava, one of our old partners who come to WOMEX every year, they have amazing lineup. And Philip, who's one of their bookers, he always books some amazing artists from WOMEX. And it's amazing to see that there are such big, good festivals who are bringing such artists to these audiences, their audiences. And yeah, so I hope like more and more bookers can take chances and, such challenges of bringing interesting music, which of course is a bit of a chance for sure. But, if you won't take chances and if you won't give such musicians opportunities, this little market will also shrink further. And then a lot of times people go like, man, why is the music market for global music is so small? It's because people don't take chances, because people don't try and think that let's give something new and something different. Or it's actually not even new and different, but why not just bring a nice musician or like a nice group of artists from Brazil on some festival somewhere, where it's only electronic or whatever. Like, it can be more and more multi-genre festivals trying different things or venues. Yeah, so I hope more bookers can try, take more chances, really, and make lineups more interesting.
In order for not only to be having a great time, but to be humbled. Because I think
also,
we all
absolutely. Absolutely.
In 5 years, where is WOMEX? Are there still ambitions?
Ambitions. Very simple ambitions. I hope more artist bookings, more. I mean, honestly, we say WOMEX is only a platform. I mean, we are just a platform where we give artists a little stage to showcase their talent, and for industry professionals and filmmakers to showcase what they have. And more or less, it will be the same, I think, but even more better programming, even more better. I mean, wouldn't say better, even more diverse programming and more diverse artists. So, I mean, it's very difficult to say what would be the success of WOMEX. Of course, we would like more delegates, but at the same time, we want to make sure the delegates who come are very, they get something out of it. So we don't want to grow just for the heck of growing. We want to grow because we believe people who are, the community which comes and attends WOMEX, they get something out of it. So I would say that. I would say more stability in the music scene. actually. So if there's more music stability in the music scene, then WOMEX would be even more stable. Yeah, because it's not an easy business at the end, like it's really difficult, especially conferences.
If people listening want to find out more about WOMEX, want to apply as delegates, not sure if it's still possible, but even apply for the showcases or to be a part of it in any other sense, or even if people listening want to book you for a crazy Bollywood disco edit night, where can they find more about WOMEX and where can they find more about you personally to connect with you?
So WOMEX.com definitely has all the information. The call for artists is still open, or call for proposal for conference panel is still open. It closes on 28th of February. So if anyone's interested, they can definitely, on WOMEX.com, you will find the link, a direct link for WOMEXapply.com, which is the proposal website. And from that, they can send in their entries. Yeah, that's on the WOMEX side. Me, very easy. If they will Google the name, they will find me and my Instagram or my music. Actually, on Spotify, I go with the artist name called Claptrap, which I usually don't talk about much. But yeah, that's me. And there they will find a lot of my music, or Bandcamp or Spotify or any of these. Yeah.
As always, the very last question. What is the power of music?
I think, or at least from my perspective, is basically bringing the world, or making the world smaller. I think that's what I've learned from, through the eyes of WOMEX. The power of music is that it's bringing so many people together, regardless of where they come from. There's so much togetherness with this. And I think that's where every year after year, people from around the world come to attend WOMEX to meet each other. A lot of times, actually, people come to WOMEX with no agenda. They just come to enjoy and meet friends. There are enough people who are not there for business, but they're just there to have a good time. And I think this is also where the power of music comes in, that it just becomes this little thing where they feel like they're going to meet like-minded people once a year at least and enjoy some music. And while they're enjoying some music, they will also do some business. And yeah, so I think the power of music is to bring people together. Yeah, just create less borders.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you for arranging that we could record during the last edition. It was fantastic. Mine. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Thank you very much for listening. If you want more information about JM, or you would like to get involved, visit www.jmi.net. At JMI, we are on a mission to make the world more musical. That's why we created Mubazar, a digital platform that helps us manage all our musical activities across 80 countries worldwide, connecting musicians with opportunities to grow both personally and professionally. If you are a music professional looking for a better way to manage and promote your music activities, check out Mubazar. Created for music organizers, by music organizers, Mubazar allows you to run music competitions, workshops, camps, auditions, masterclasses, awards, events, and much more. Mubazar offers custom application forms, payments for your activities, jury tools, translations, analytics, and more. Mubazar is fast becoming the best place for musicians to find and apply for music opportunities online, and you can sign up today for a free organizer account by going to www.mubazar.com, registering, and then requesting to upgrade to an organizer on the right-hand menu. For more info, don't hesitate to get in touch via support@mubazar.com. It would mean a lot to us if you could give us 1 minute of your time and rate and review the podcast. In case you have any suggestions or would like to be one of our next guests, feel free to reach out to us through the JMI socials.